at the University of Georgia. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this info session about the upcoming Diversity and Inclusion Certificate Program that will be starting later this month. And we want to give you a chance to ask some questions. We have a lot of things to share. So to get us started, there are many great things about this program that we've enjoyed and the two pilots that we've had previously. But there are three that I wanted to make sure we bring up at the start as key. And one is that the alignment of this program with the new ISO standards, ISO-30415 for diversity and inclusion. It's unique. Lots of colleges and universities offer D&I certificate programs, but this one is uniquely aligned with an international standard and framework to help you assess risk and take action. The second thing is to get across as much as we can that it's really not a heavy lift to do this course and to
I think everyone is muted by mistake.
Okay, I've just unmuted myself.
Oh.
So thank you, James. So light time commitment. In the previous two sessions that we have held of this program, everyone has reported it only takes them 2 to 4 hours per week to complete the work. So easy to do and take it all in stride while you are also doing your regular work. And if you have to miss a week for vacation or something, it's really not difficult to catch up. And the third thing is the international network that you'll be a part of building and the great work that we can all do together associated with the program. And much of this comes about because of James Felton Keith and James's network that he has helped to cultivate to be able to promote the program and to work collaboratively around the globe in implementing the international standards for diversity and inclusion. And so, Carmen, are you advancing slides? Great. Okay. So as many of you may know, the Terry College Business is part of the University of Georgia, which is located in Athens, Georgia. It's about 70 miles to the east of Atlanta. Our team is based here in Atlanta. We work directly with corporations and professionals on executive development. And the college was strategic in locating an executive campus here in Atlanta. And it's also where we hold our executive MBA and professional MBA programs. So it is a center for learning, for corporate learning, and we would encourage any of you to please reach out if we can be of help to you and your organizations in the future. At this point, I want to turn things over to James Felton Keith, who is the designer of our program that we are informing you about today. And he is the lead instructor. And it's such a privilege to get to work with James and have that FaceTime as part of the program. So James, over to you. Please tell everybody about this program that we've designed.
Thanks so much, Linda. Yeah, and welcome everybody. We're excited about this, now going on the third cohort to start later this month. Look, this course, along with some of the other faces that you see in this slide here, it just wouldn't be possible. I am the lead instructor, but this course, again, as Linda said in the beginning, for some folks who are just getting in a little late, is the first D&I, DEI, DEIMB, whatever choice language you like to use, certification that is rooted in the ISO standard. So, ISO 30415 took us about 10 years to complete. A lot of the language was complete by 2019, but the pandemic happened. And so the standard wasn't published until May of 2021. We just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of that standard. And also in this course, we have F.N.S. Henderson, who was the lead convener across thousands of D&I consultants over the course of those 10 years to really agree on the language of the ISO standard. And that's really the big fix here. Is previously, if you were to ask any 10 people in your network, what does D&I or diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean? They tell you 10 different answers, probably about human resources. But this standard is much broader than human resources. And it really incentivizes corporations to set a sort of intentionality from a policy standpoint internally with regards to how they scale inclusivity. And for the folks who are on the line from large companies, this can help you workflow your way through how you get better at DEI over the course of this next decade. And for the consultants on the line, this standard really helps you scale out how you would engage a client and scale them into being more inclusive over time. The third person in this course is Dawn Bennett Alexander, who is emeritised at the Terry College at UGA and has been instrumental in putting together, help bringing us all together, Linda and myself, to put together this course. But she was also there at the table at the beginning of the ISO standard 10 years ago. But she's really the OG. She's been around for about 40 years doing this work. She wrote the first employment law book in the early 90s, started it in the 80s, and has really helped incentivize a market of litigation and DEI work through the law that has really incentivized us to be here today. The real reason that we're at the Terry College above every other place on the planet is because the Terry College is the #1 risk management school in the country, as the biased American, I'll say, on the planet. But we have trained folks in this standard across 14 countries so far. We've got folks who have come out of here from France and South Africa and Australia, you name it. Even folks who English is not their primary language, to learn about how you go about auditing and advancing a company through diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So it's the first of its kind course. I'll say also a humble brag. We've had a lot of people come to this course who have done DEI courses at other universities like Northwestern and Cornell. And it's not a competition because DEI is such a big landscape, but this is a difference between the basics of what diversity might mean versus how you implement inclusivity into corporate change management. That's really our focus here in this course, is for everyone to leave thinking that they have a general understanding of how to audit based on the folks who have led the thousands of top consultants across 163 countries to ratify this standard. So that's what we do here. This is a course for teaching DEI to the people with collared shirts. This is the work that we do here. So I'll pause there. I don't want to overtalk, but this is the course that's rooted in the standard. Or maybe I won't pause there. So Carmen, should I run through okay, that's me. All right. So again, it's a 4-week course, but it really feels more like 5 because there's a kickoff, right? And there'll be a recorded lecture for the first 3 courses. But each week there's a 1.5 hour live session. It's really like office hours, like Q&A, but we really spend time building community, getting to know the other participants in the course. And it's what I would say, and really what per all the feedback everyone else has said, a lot of the value comes in the course where they get to know the members of their cohort and figure out how they can collaborate, whether they're at big companies trying to solve this problem, or whether they're consultants trying to figure out a way in. They spend a lot of time together. And I'll say, separately from the recorded sessions in the first 3 weeks, where we go over the 32 domains of the ISO standard or the maturity model or the 27 different types of diversity that the ISO standard falls on. The last week, we really focus on procurement and supplier diversity. And we've had some really dynamic panels in the previous cohorts from large firms like UPS and the Home Depot and Equifax and State Farm even, who have come to share how they do what they do. And we've worked their problems back into sort of the case study that we try to vet companies through after they tell us some of the hurdles, trials, and triumphs that they're going through in their company. So we spent a lot of time doing that. I see we've got a few testimonials here, but even outside of these 3, there are plenty of people raving about this all over, LinkedIn and the internet right now who have been through the course. Again, whether they're small one-off consultants interested in D&I, or whether they're at big firms and trying to wrap their heads around how they deploy a methodological and rigorous process to scale D&I over time. So we look forward to having you all join us. And so I guess we'll go over some of the things that constitute a successful completion of the course. Oh, is that me too? Yeah, okay, so that's still me too. So you gotta attend a minimum of 3 of the 4 live sessions. And for some folks who are really far away, we understand that's difficult. You gotta participate in the group discussions. Group participation is critical here. And then there's an exam. Oh, so there's a weekly assignment of applying the things that we learn, via inclusion score and via the ISO-30415 standard to real company examples. Again, we will walk everyone through an actual case study of a real company that we've dealt with and how we implement this standard. And then you have to pass an open book test, which again, open book, we give you a manual. It's easy. It's not intimidating. We want everyone to pass, but we want everyone to definitely understand these principles. And last but not least, when the certification is sent out, we definitely want everyone's feedback from the course so we can continue to scale into what we're doing. And here's what the certificate looks like. Some of you have probably seen a lot of folks posting on LinkedIn, et cetera. I think we just certified our first French-speaking person, our first French citizen, and she had a very popular post on LinkedIn and Instagram with this. So we look forward to growing with you. There's a registration link here, but also in the I think in the LinkedIn invite, and I'm sure you all get an email or two about that, because I think we're about what, Linda, maybe 2 weeks away from the next coach. Yep.
Yeah. So later this month. So in order to receive this 20% discount, we do invite you to join us and be a part of the program. But we want to ask you if you could go ahead and get your registration in to make sure that you secure your spot. If it would be possible for you to register by Friday in order to achieve the Terry 20 promo code discount, we encourage you to do that. Great, and you can follow us on LinkedIn. There is the UGA Executive Education page on LinkedIn with additional information on this and other programs. And there is also a special certified ISO-30415 D&I professionals group on LinkedIn that's been actively networking.
Yeah, a few people have found new jobs in there, new clients for sure. Yep.
Great.
This is also just another good page to bookmark. Before we also, let me introduce myself. My name is Carmen Taylor. I'm the program manager. So if you have any questions, and there'll be a slide at the end, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time with any questions. And some important dates coming up, just as a highlight to our summer schedule. We've already covered what's coming up for summer, but some of you may not know that we also have some dates already in the works for fall. So if after this info session, you are really excited about, being a part of the program, but the summer dates are not good for you if you're traveling or whatnot, we will have fall dates available as well. And this is what they're going to be. And to that point, this is a slide. It's got my contact information on it if you have any questions. And we can go on now, James, if you're comfortable, to segue over to Q&A and allow our participants to ask some questions.
Great.
Yep.
Carmen and James, I see in the chat, someone is asking, they're saying, I'm interested in a career as a Chief Diversity Officer. How will this program support my goals?
So that's a great question. I'll say the number one question that we ask companies that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with about 300 of them right now, is when we're talking to CFOs and CEOs, can you even define D&I, and can you define the key performance indicators that you would have a Chief Diversity Officer role report back into you? And I love to say 99.9% of the time, but really 100% of the time so far, we've always gotten a no, I can't do any of that. And so I would say the biggest benefit for a chief diversity officer leveraging this certification as they go into that role is say, I know how I could segment this business per the ISO standard and deploy a scalable, methodological, measurable approach to implementing DEI over the course of the next coming months, quarters, and years. So I think that's exactly what we get into in this course, is how a chief diversity officer should be deploying DEI from an internal policy structure standpoint versus what DEI is, right? So I think this is the course for chief diversity officers or any similar role, equity inclusion officers, chief inclusion officers. Firms are using different language, but I get your drift. And yeah.
Great.
Yep.
So Eric had a question. He wanted to know about the cost of the program. And so we've been strategic as a state institution here in the state of Georgia. We wanted to make sure that this was a low-cost program. We looked around at other schools and what they were charging, and in many cases it was several thousand, even up to $5,000 for a diversity and inclusion certificate program. Ours is priced at $1,250 because we wanted it to be more accessible. We're sometimes asked if we have scholarships. We do not. We're happy to entertain that if somebody would like to help us grow a scholarship fund somewhere. But at this point, we don't have those funds available. We've kept it at a low cost in order to make it accessible for as many people as we possibly could, however. So $1,250, and then if you use the promo Terry 20 when you register, it's 20% off.
Thank you so much.
And the class meeting times are on Eastern time, EST, 12 to 1:30 on Wednesdays.
And to Atia, yes, you can register. I think, well, Carmen could probably answer that better. I think you can register for the fall course. I'm not sure if it's up on the site yet.
The fall course is not up on the site yet, but it will be by the end of the week.
Okay. Yep. I see some.
And all participants of today's session will receive information about the fall session.
Okay, regarding Barbara's question, I'll say, so Barbara asked, are there any opportunities to consult with Inclusion Score once certified? So yes, I mean, one dual benefit of this course outside of, seeding the market, and Linda made a good point, is the price point that we're priced at is we're really focused on scale, right? We need a lot more people to have these skill sets than have them right now. And so we're not trying to necessarily compete with what a small private school in the Northeast is charging. We want everyone to be able to participate here in the spirit of inclusion. But the other thing is we get a lot of bulk clients through our work at Inclusion Score, and we actually need more DIPs to deploy across the country and, quite frankly, across the globe. We just hired one of our DIPs from the first cohort, who's a Spaniard, to work with a large insurance company out in Spain because he's native to that country. We've hired a few in Chicago and Florida. So yeah, that is our core intention, to, once we have a network of folks that we can point to who we know how to audit, that we can put them immediately in touch to get work. And we've seen folks do one of two things. They're either consulting on their own. We also had a woman right in Atlanta become chief diversity officer of a large media company in the past 3 months. So, it just depends on where folks want to go. But yes, those opportunities are definitely there. And someone just asked me to clarify, by DIP, I mean diversity and inclusion professional, which is what it will say on the UGA certificate that you get. So obviously there are a lot of diversity and inclusion consultants out there in the world, and we've worked with some of them prior to this program, but now we really just try to work with folks who we know understand the ISO standard and auditing the way that we would do it. So we try to work with those folks exclusively. I see a lot of other activity in the chat box. I can't read this fast. I'm not.
So we had somebody ask that they've already registered and they wanted to know, when they would be receiving information. So you will be invited to join the online portal prior to the June 29th orientation session. So just be on the lookout for emails. Carmen is the program manager, so she'll be your friend and making sure that you have all the information that you need for successful enrollment, access to the online portal, and also completion of the program. So,
yep, and it's noon Eastern. So if you're somewhere else, like today I'm in Missouri, and so it's 11. But yeah, so we operate on Eastern Standard Time, but Atlanta time. I think Atlanta's right on the edge, right? I used to always be confused if they were on. Anyway, noon Eastern.
Yeah, it's totally virtual, right? Somebody just asked to make sure it is online. So there is online work that is done on the portal, and then there is live sessions for 90 minutes each week that are via Zoom.
Right, they'll be via Zoom, and they'll be recorded, and then they'll be uploaded also for that one course that folks might miss. You'll be able to catch it on the e-learning center, the ELC as we call it. We're very acronym heavy group as everywhere is these days. So you'll be able to see those recordings.
So a couple of questions that came in, James, were around ISO and what that means, speaking of acronyms.
Yep. So the ISO is actually a bit backwards. It's the International Organization for Standards, started a little bit after World War II. We call it the ISO or ISO for short, but essentially anything that we do well as humans, whether it's manufacturing process or shipping process or the process to build the textiles that are in your clothes or clean drinking water, there's an ISO standard for it. And so the large innovation that took us about 10 years was creating an ISO standard for diversity and inclusion. And the reason it exists is really for consensus, right? So there are a lot of people doing interesting things with regards to diversity and inclusion, a lot of great PhDs out there making up processes, and they all have a whole lot of merit. But the way the real world changes, the corporate world changes, is through consensus as we codify what things are so that we can gradually progress through those. And so the ISO has allowed us to build that. And I think you would have to check with whatever HR organization you're getting education credits from, if you mean that from a trade association or for your company, about if it applies as credits. But right now, this is a totally separate certification that one could use. I'm unsure about the second half of the question. And so on the question is inclusion score applicable on a global scale? So inclusion score separately from the course. So inclusion score is separate from the course. We're mostly here to talk about the course, but it, along with the ISO standard, is applicable on a global scale. We currently deal and operate in about 16 countries: Austria, Australia, Argentina, France, South Africa, the UK, the United States, you name it. And it is because over those 10 years, across thousands of consultants, across 163 countries, we spent time trying to agree on what diversity and inclusion are, right? And so now that we have, this course is the only course of its kind that helps us understand that and be able to deploy it not only locally, but globally. And I will say this, we work with some consulting firms that are seeing hyper growth in the EU more than the United States. We really think it's just a proxy of, Europeans tend to respect the ISO standard more than Americans. I can just say this on my own. Americans, we sort of feel like cowboys, like we can make up stuff on our own. I feel that way too. I have to humble myself. So there's opportunity in a lot of places, depending on which languages you speak and which cultures you're familiar with.
Right. And James, somebody has sent me a message. They said that their role's in procurement. And they want to know how applicable the course might be for them if they're maybe a little more focused on supplier diversity.
So a bit, again, and we know DEI sort of covers the gambit. The ISO standard focuses on 4 large bucket areas. The first is governance, stuff we do with executives. The second is HR, obviously, stuff we do with employees. The third is product, which we rarely talk about, whether your product is a service or something more tangible. But the last and arguably most important is procurement or supplier diversity. And it's really because in the standard, it insists that really D&I principles travel throughout a supply chain, right? And so if you deal with a large company, this is not only about how you vet spend with your minority suppliers or all of your suppliers, but also how you distribute D&I principles, the companies that would suggest they don't have the same sophistication that you do if you're at a larger firm. So we spend a significant portion of time in this course. Really, that whole fourth week is dedicated to procurement, really doing a deep dive into procurement and how the standard can travel, right? And how a procurement professional might leverage the standard to not only incentivize the other portions of their organization to become more rigorous with regards to the ISO standard, but also how they might incentivize and identify investment opportunities with their suppliers, minority and other suppliers, right, to scale in inclusivity. And it's really where the world is going. So I feel like the procurement professionals of the world are really our gatekeepers for DEI. I would say more so than the HR folks. And so even Linda deals with a large cohort of large companies down there in the Atlanta area in their supplier diversity roundtable. And they supply a lot of the folks who are in the class. So you won't be alone. Last time we had a lot of procurement folks from Assurant and the Home Depot and UPS and you name it, who are specific to procurement, even on the university side, Penn State, we got universities sending their procurement people here to learn how to do this so that they can deploy it better back at home. So yeah, I think this is designed for procurement folks as much as it is for HR folks. And you'll see when we get in the course, it's really more about change management everywhere in the company, whether it's with the HR director, or procurement director, or product director. And once they all get that, they start working together to see real sort of change and inclusivity happen over time. Hopefully that answered the question. Was that long-winded? I'm a bit long-winded, so.
We have about a minute left, and there are 2 more questions in the chat. Looks like there's one from Meg Gibson, and she says, do you have an understanding of the difference of this certificate compared to the Society of Diversity course in certification?
Yeah, so that cert is more about, similar to that Cornell cert, it's more about what DEI and B are, right? Like what those big ideas are. It's sort of a beginner's course to, here is diversity, let's tell you what's happened in the world over the course of the past 50 years. Again, our course is about submitting auditing and corporate change management across your institution per the ISO standard. It's about understanding the ISO and how you implement it, not about understanding DEI and B. Not to say that folks shouldn't have a general understanding of DEI and B, but where the world is going is you should be able to deliver an auditing process or methodology to any subject matter expert in your company to where DEI and B doesn't just rest with the rock stars who care about inclusivity, where it just becomes a regular part of corporate change management. So it's a big difference in the course and the design of the course and how you might actually use it in the real world. I see a few other questions.
Well, we're right at the end of the session, and just out of respect for everybody's time today, I'd just like to let everyone know, again, my name is Carmen Taylor. I'm the program manager for this program. So I've got my information up on the screen. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure they get answered. Also, if those of you who are registering and have any questions about using the Terry 20 discount code, I can help you with that as well. But finally, there is a recording of today's session. I'll make sure that everyone in attendance gets a copy of the recording in case you weren't able to attend for the full time. Finally, I just want to thank James and Linda for all of their input today, and thank all of you guys for attending with us, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in the program when it starts at the end of June. Thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.